Okay, so did you guys click on the link?
I have it pulled up. I've not started playing it yet, though.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1. You guys can hit play. So 3, 2, 1, and then just react to that.
Yep. Do.
I'm in a real jam, man.
I can hit play now.
Yeah.
I got a hot gig to get over on the planet Naboo, but I can't seem to poke my head out without someone trying to take it off.
Oh!
Ain't no clue how my funky rhythm.
Oh my god!
But I'm gonna need your
Oh my gosh!
I'm gonna share my grooves with the galaxy.
Ooh.
Thanks, man. I'll take you. You gotta ship.
Okay,
Oh,
that
I
was
love it so much.
so that was very incredible.
Oh man!
So Cassia just shared with us a YouTube video that's called "Is This Max Rebo's Voice?" and it's amazing, and we'll put a link to it in the show.
Isn't that what I said too on the podcast, that I want it to be like somewhere between like Barry White and like The Weeknd, something like that? Like, oh man, he's got that jazz cat going perfectly. That was amazing. Oh,
it reminds me so much of Adult Swim's Robot Chicken.
Yeah. I think that's canon, right? That's my head canon anyway.
It's canon,
His voice in
basically.
that, yeah.
Book of Boba Fett made it canon. And,
That's right. It's canon on the Old Republic podcast, which is the most important.
Truly.
Yeah. And notice how he has how many arms and how many legs.
Yes. You know? Yeah. I've gotten into many keyboard bouts with people about how many limbs he should and can have. I kind of feel like that Quentin Tarantino clip where he's like, because it's fun. I give him 4 because it's fun. You know, I know it's 2, but I don't know.
Yeah.
4 is more fun.
4 is more fun.
Anyway.
And less creepy looking.
4 is more fun. Yeah, truly.
So you are basically our Max Rebo expert and our good friend. So Hooney, it's always a pleasure to have you on the ORP, you know. So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've got maybe like 2 cups of coffee in me now. I'm working on the second and a half, so that's pretty good. I've done some running around, done a lot of reading this little bit here, this last, couple weeks, a lot of note taking. And since our last podcast and our last recording, there's been a lot going on. So cool, good stuff. And I'm very excited to talk about this book. It's good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I finished it on Audible. I kind of had to use the force at some points, like to make things speed up, kind of on the Duel of the Fates, you know. But it's a great story, and I can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, for sure. So I had read this like a long time ago when it first came out. So it came back out in 2013. It's written by John Jackson Miller. So I read it, but it didn't leave that much of an impression onto me. I don't know if I just I wasn't paying attention to it when I read it, or like I was expecting it to be something different. So I'd read it. I kind of set it to the side, didn't think too much about it until fast forward to now, the year 2022. We are on the eve of the Kenobi television show coming out, and we wanted to do a little bit of Kenobi deep dive and wanted to talk about this book with you, Hooney. So yeah, like Cassia, I just listened to it again myself last week, and it's completely phenomenal. And yeah, totally excited to talk about it.
How did you first come across the book, Hooney?
I think I was still in high school. I was working summer jobs, doing labor stuff, and I believe I was at the Native North American Traveling College doing a lot of yard work, labor stuff. So I spent a lot of time with a weed whacker and my headphones. So I was able to read a bunch of books because they got a lot of stuff to get cut down. And I remember reading over a summer, a couple of the Walking Dead novels as well as Kenobi. And kind of like you, Brian, I kind of came in with like, this could be boring, this could be a good time. We'll have to see. And I think after the first couple chapters, I was like hooked. And it really planted the seed planted a strong foundation for my faith in the Kenobi show coming up, because it's such a small story. It's such a macro story, and yet to the people that are living through it, it's such a huge one. And coming from a reservation, I related a lot to the stories and the people in this book because, you come from a small town, you come from a small res, and specifically there can be kind of, that vibe of like, well, you're here now, where are you going to go? You're going to come back eventually if you leave. Like, that feeling was kind of there, and a lot of the characters had that, I guess, pessimism that I really gravitated towards. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a very wholesome read. I caught myself a couple times holding the weed whacker smiling and probably looked kind of psychotic, because there are some really wholesome moments in this book, and that was something that really, there's moments of levity, there's moments of kind of darkness, there's moments of like, oh geez, like you kind of like have to hold the book back, or kind of sit back while you're listening and just kind of like cringe at some of the stuff that's happening. And there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's super, super well written and well done. And it's such a pivotal point that we have Kenobi at while we're listening. And, I really, really enjoyed it. I went in kind of thinking, oh yeah, maybe this will be just another, Star Warsy book with a bunch of shout outs and not a lot of flavor, I guess. I guess I was kind of more pessimistic going in, and the pessimism contained therein drew me back in.
I remember this book coming out, I think, around like 2013, and I think this is kind of one of the last Legends books that were considered canon alongside the Clone Wars new canon pre-Disney buying Star Wars, creating a new canon. So it's a little complicated, but like this was like the most canon Legends book at the time, and Siri got a mention, and Satine got a mention, and it was just a nice book by John Jackson Miller, who's like beloved by Lucasfilm novel aficionados, and I just found like it was a love letter to Tatooine, definitely kind of inspired by some of the inspirations, that inspired George Lucas in creating Tatooine, but I think like kind of subverts them and kind of outgrows them in some ways that are like more interesting to see than like, maybe what we might have seen in my opinion, the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned John Jackson Miller and how beloved he is, and it's it has a lot to do with this book. But he has done a lot of like comic books, including he's known for writing some of the Knights of the Old Republic comics, which is pretty cool. And then he actually did. He was one of the co-writers on the Knights of the Old Republic campaign guide for the that Wizards of the Coast Star Wars role-playing game. Which sounds amazing. So I think that after we get finished recording this, I'm going to go see if I can pop up a copy of that for myself, because I definitely want to take a look at that, and maybe that's something we'll have to talk about in the future. But it's interesting because John Jackson Miller, he takes what we know about Tatooine and just like completely like blows it up into like this huge perspective. So you're getting to live in this town with these people, and you really are getting like the day-to-day aspirations and struggles that they have, and in a way that feels like Star Wars. It feels like what George Lucas set out to do with Tatooine, but like you said, Cassie, it just moves so far beyond it. It's unbelievable. It's worth reading just for the world building of the sand planet that we keep going back to, alone. So.
Yeah, and this is before, The Mandalorian. This is before the Book of Boba Fett, and kind of just like we had Tatooine in episodes 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, like, and I just found like it was a nice, like, I really started to understand Tatooine, and appreciate it more. And I don't know, it is funny because we keep on returning to Tatooine, and I'm like, I do kind of wonder if that's like the rumors we kind of hear about Kenobi, that Kenobi is going to be off-world for some of the episodes. Maybe it's just to kind of like give audiences like something else to kind of react and respond to, but it's interesting.
Yeah, true. You're going to have to set aside a couple hundred for that John Jackson Miller book there. The campaign guide. I think that's the last time I looked it up, it was like 130, maybe 150 on Amazon or eBay or wherever it was that I found it. Yeah, it is a hefty one. I kind of hunt for a lot of those D&D adjacent Star Wars books because of the art is so good in them. And yeah, that one does have some great art, but it is so expensive to get a physical copy. So yeah, good luck there.
I mean, one thing I kind of wonder about is buying like the KOTOR kind of campaign guide that kind of has Revan and Bastila and HK and Zane Carrick on the cover. Yeah. Sometimes it's cheap, sometimes it's like super not cheap, but Star Wars Frames is like, I think there's only like an option to rent it on Amazon for a few $100, and I'm like, oh wow, it's selected like frames that are selected by the maker himself, you know. And I'm like, I mean, maybe if we ever like hit it really big, you know, like on Patreon or something, like Brian and I can like rent it and like return it, you know. But that would be my dream. We'll do a
GoFundMe to rent that book for a week.
There you go.
Yes, so definitely go check this book out. If you're listening to this in the future, maybe you've already watched the Kenobi series, or if you're listening to it, when this comes out, Kenobi is coming next week. But I think even aside from what we're going to get in the show, I think this is definitely worth your time to pick up and read. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break? Now anyone who hasn't read it, who doesn't want to get spoiled on the story, can go take a break. They can go see if they can help me find a copy of that role-playing guide. And then we'll be right back and we will dive into the story and get into all of the nitty-gritty of the Kenobi novel.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we started with Max Rebo. We're here for Kenobi, and now we're diving into everything Kenobi, and we're gonna discuss the characters, plot, and just the different sections of the Kenobi novel in more depth. And we're gonna have a party, like, because I'm just kind of anticipating a party, and like talk about important things too. So
that's right. It's going to be like an Ithorian wedding party that you get pulled into to dance at. There you go. That's a deep cut for
those parties. Get crazy all the time. They get better all the time. Yeah.
That's right. That's where the Kenobi novel is taking us. But yeah, it gets started off with like a prologue. It's basically just kind of recapping the last, I don't know, like 5-ish minutes of the Return of the Sith. Kenobi has taken little baby Luke Skywalker to live with his aunt and uncle on Tatooine, and that's kind of where the Kenobi book gets started, which is different than the Kenobi TV series, which looks like it's about halfway between him getting to Tatooine and Luke Skywalker going off on his adventure to the Death Star. So that's kind of interesting that it's set like literally like just within a couple of days of him getting there, which I think is a really fun kind of character study into his psyche in the story. So that's pretty cool. I think that was an interesting decision, and I think that I appreciate that we got to go right into that aftermath.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, it's called Kenobi. I was gonna be like, if you didn't know it, it's a love letter to Kenobi, but I'm like, oh wait, that's kind of very obvious. But it's just kind of taking him from the end of Revenge of the Sith, and like where you kind of find him in A New Hope there is like a very large gap, and I mean, like, obviously, like, Kenobi did not get the good skincare routine on Tatooine.
Oh, no.
And, I mean, Bail looks like the same and, like, great, Mon Mothma, great, but Ben...
That's right.
did not get that skincare routine. I guess like Alderaan and Chandrillian moisturizers or something else.
Yeah.
And Tatooine is like, here's some
Jimmy
dust.
Smits is ageless, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They have
Oh,
to
yeah.
get day spas on Alderaan, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm excited for Kenobi, the Disney Plus series, is to kind of see that transition from Episode 3, General Obi-Wan Kenobi, to Obi-Wan Kenobi to crazy old Ben Kenobi. You know?
Yeah. I love how we also see that transition happening within the book. I have a couple in my 20-page notes. My casual 20-page notes. That was once 31 pages. I have, hiding is difficult for someone accustomed to action. It's a good line. I think that could be kind of the thesis for the show, because there's going to be, I feel, so many moments where he's going to be seeing things happening, and he sees things happen in this book, and he has to fight the will within himself not to intervene, because he knows for certain that he can do something about it and, you know, come out on top. So we get that, what is it in the trailer where they say that it's like the itch or the urge, or the Jedi code. I'm misremembering at the moment, but I feel like that's a really good precedent that they already set within the trailer. And yeah, I'm really excited for that as well, because there's a lot of stone that needs to be chipped away for us to get to old Ben Kenobi, and yet what's underneath, I feel like he's like a diamond in the end. He's better for it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of tragedy as well.
So yeah, it kind of starts out kind of with the final moments from Revenge of the Sith, where Ben drops off baby Luke to the Larses, and they observe, you know, a sunset, a binary sunset. I guess Luke's first, and then we kind of start off with the first section is called the Oasis, which is a major part of this book.
Yeah, so the Oasis is basically this settlement area, you know, within Tatooine, and you know, you think you're going to get a book about Kenobi, but no. This book starts off, and you mentioned the twin sons, and we're going deep into the lore of what those two sons represent to the native people of Tatooine, and we are introduced to Ayark, who is our Tusken leader, who we're going to be following, you know, kind of throughout this whole story. So it's a new character, and it's a new perspective on the Sand People, on the Tusken Raiders, you know, that we've known since 1977. But oh boy, we see them in a completely different light, and you know, really get to learn about their culture, about their civilization, and about, you know, the way that they see the world.
Yeah, truly. I'd like to announce formally that I'm beginning I need some funding. I need some things. I need travel money. But I'd like to get together with, you know, a lot of like-minded people to start the first Ayark fan club. Oh my God! I love Ayark so much. I think I talked about this book, referenced it whenever we talked about Tuskens and KOTOR. But Ayark, so good. So good. And the twist that comes later on, if you're still listening, go and listen to this book, go and read this book, go and transcribe this book into your retinas. Ayark is female, and she is so strong. She is so dope. She is so awesome. But you don't know for the first half of the book that she is leading her people, and she's leading the last vestiges of her people. We learn that Tusken is from Fort Tusken, if you know our readers didn't already know, and that's a name that they herald, that they're proud of, that she's proud of at the very least, that it's something that they, you know, take on with pride. Versus, I'm guessing that Sand People is going to be the insult versus Tusken, so maybe we'll stick with Tusken, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff on Ayark in this book, and I love it so much because it challenges the set structure that a book like this would have. Whenever it's calling back to classic Westerns and classic, stories like that, where you see the indigenous people of a planet and they are savage. They are thoughtless. They are merciless savages, as the documents would say. But here, we understand why they are so savage, quote unquote, why they are so lost, really. So you really think about the Tuscans. One thing that really hit me in this intro portion is that, so we have reference to the mighty tribes. Many have become war parties. Multiple nations of Tuscans confirmed! I'm so happy my girlfriend left. I can yell. She was on a call before this. She read the book leading up to this episode because I was raving about it so much and so annoyingly. There was no drive to get groceries or anything that was safe from me ranting about this book, and just kind of low key being like, I could gift it to you on Audible. But anyway, she's been sitting on a lot of credits too. So, and it was a good time. And I discussed with Brian beforehand that I was trying to keep the Ayark as a female thing on wraps. So there was one time where I accidentally referred to Ayark as a she, and then I kind of pulled myself back and was like, Ayark, yes, such a strong character, because we have a lot within Haudenosaunee society. We are a matriarchal society. So we have this meme within Indian country, indigeneity, I don't know, about aunties and how much aunties are important to us and our people, and uncles are important to our people. But for Haudenosaunee people, we are a matriarchal society. So everything is carried through our mothers. I get my name, I get my clan, I get everything from my mother, and I go straight down the line. So Yark, as the leader of her people, as shirking those gender norms that were established beforehand, as a way of survival, so strong, so good. And yet this is a tradition that potentially is something that could be left in the wayside. We see in the Book of Boba Fett that they don't have the traditional garb anymore that we see in Attack of the Clones. Maybe this is, a budgetary reason for the show, but maybe, just stick with me here. If a Yark is brought into canon, what if she inspires the shirking of these gender norms? What if she inspires the Tuscan people, or inspires this band of Tuscans that would go on to become the ones that we know within the series to carry that forward? Is a Yark the inspiration within universe and out of universe in the meta for warrior woman in the Book of Boba Fett that everybody fell in love with, and then Jon Favreau is she the inspiration? She is so strong, she is so dope, she is so awesome, and every chapter that we got of her, I just ate it up, just everything. Anyway, sorry folks if you came here to listen to Cassie and Brian talk about Benjamin Kenobi, but any chance I get to rant about a Yark, I am going to. I think I even did. There was a good amount of real estate devoted to this book in our first podcast, so I'm really glad that we're here. And I have so many notes.
Certainly I would like to think maybe that they drew some inspiration for the warrior Tuscan that we saw in Book of Boba Fett, because that would be awesome. I would love to see kind of that through line if they're able to tie that in, or potentially in this Kenobi show, if we are going to be interacting with the Tuscans at all, if we got to see any glimpses or hints that this is the same Tuscan from this book. That would be incredible. One of the things that I really like, especially as the book gets kicked off, is the way she's talking about the sons. I believe she describes them as the two brothers in the sky, chasing one another, and I think that's really great imagery and really great kind of storytelling, and you really get kind of fleshed out the way that the Tusken Raiders, the native people of Tatooine, kind of view the environment in which they're living, and kind of the respect that they have for it and how it, dictates kind of the way that they lead their lives. And you get that right off the bat. And I think that that's pretty great.
Yeah, true. And relating their creation story to KOTOR, I am really curious if... So we know that there are multiple bands of Tuskens. We know that there are multiple peoples. They break off, they come back together. Once one band is destroyed by another, survivors of that one will potentially go to the conquering band or to another band that they find. So they're constantly intermingling cultures. There are over 500 nations within the United States, indigenous peoples, that are documented. There are hundreds more that are not documented and recognized, is the word I was looking for. There are common truths within many cultures that you go to. There's always, there's the flood, there's be good to your neighbors. These common truths, they carry through. So I'm curious how much each band of Tusken people, how much their creation stories differ, because you can learn a lot about people through their creation myths and their fables. So I'm curious, again, if this is a more savage, I'm gonna be attacking this as a stereotype that's used within Westerns, and that you've got your mythic savage, your noble savage, your bloodthirsty savages. This is its face is the bloodthirsty savage, and yet whenever we get to know a Yark more and her people more, we understand that they're victims of circumstance. And I'm curious how many generations back this myth about the two sons goes back. Is this purely from the EU, or is there potential, again, for me to explain this and make it my headcanon? Is this the root of this band of Tusken? The two sons, the shame of showing their faces, that can still carry through. But can the KOTOR creation story still exist? With the Rakatan Empire coming in, and maybe the reason that we don't see that within universe, there are so many generations of Tuskens that have come and gone, and so many stories and so many peoples that have been snuffed out by colonization. Those stories could be gone. Those people could be gone. And that center, that root of a culture could be gone. And the only thing that they have left is their surroundings to build culture on. And their culture is one of survival, of being the strongest. That culture is destroyed and replaced by one of survival and savagery. We get a lot of notes about how they don't plan for the future because the only thing that matters is today. And I think that's a really poignant and definitive note to express how this Tusken band operates. Because we have, more of a peaceful band, it seems, and more of a peaceful group in the Book of Boba Fett. They're also surviving, but they haven't resorted to raiding like the other ones. I think that's referenced in the Book of Boba Fett. They seem to be more like just cultivating their area around them, and I'm sure they're nomadic. Their structures seem like they can be moved, and whenever Boba comes in, he's helping out a lot. But for the most part, it seems like even with just Boba and the Rodian, they're just looking for black lemons to take back, and they're just surviving day to day. So anyway, relating that back to KOTOR, are these two separate bands? And I don't know, I really love the idea of that.
Yeah, many nations. I try to find like authentic and respectful translations, coming from the source. Like when it comes to folklore and stuff, it's something I just have loved since I was a kid. And just like, we were talking with the Hero's Journey podcast, and they're saying like, basically we share 50% of our DNA with bananas, and if we were that similar to a banana, so many of our stories, are unique and yet kind of universal. And just like I love like kind of just the similarities and like the differences you can find in folklore. And I just love discovering stories, and it's just fascinating to hear like if you listen to the Hawaiian mythology, like those stories, they were able to kind of predict like which island existed first, the longest, like they got it right, and like they weren't scientists, but like there are truths in the stories we tell, and I love that. So
yeah. And yeah, they're not intelligent via the Western assumption, right? You throw those assumptions on ancient peoples, and then some people assume that it's all aliens. So that's a very twisted thing to assume that indigenous peoples or first peoples couldn't fathom universe closer or even more so than we can today with all our technologies and our iPhones and telescopes and all these things, because there's the potential they were more attentive, and there is a huge potential for them to be more attuned with the world around them. You talk about the banana and stuff. I mean, isn't that just the Force connects us and binds us? And
maybe I insulted the banana out there. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. We're sorry, bananas in Fortnite. Wherever you appear, we don't want to trigger you. We're a banana friendly group here, so yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so we meet Ayark. We learn a little bit about the Tuscan culture, and then kind of to wind out like that first little tail bit is they hear a great dragon call, and they have to flee kind of this raid, and then we're introduced to, I guess, the people of the Oasis who are using this great dragon call as kind of like a repellent, to scare the Tuscans away if they're there doing their raiding. And we meet, kind of the book is called Kenobi, but I mean they're almost kind of the main characters of this book. So we meet Orangalt, who's a moisture farmer, and we meet Annaline, who is a shopkeeper, and we meet their kids and a couple of other people in the Oasis, and they're gonna kind of be the catalyst who weaves the story in and out of Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, Ben Kenobi's story, and Ayark's story, and kind of using this Oasis as kind of the backdrop for how John Jackson Miller is telling his Kenobi story. Yeah,
true. And I want to add a very important note. I think we should get a Superstore-like show with Annaline and the Danar's Claim. I think that was my first note on the on Danar's Claim. If we have Superstore fans here, that'd be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with Herbally Napti.
Tashi Station,
Yeah. Tashi Station was in Book of Boba Fett, right? And it was super small. I always pictured it as like this sprawling spot, but it's just like a bar, basically.
That's right. So we meet these people of the Oasis, and like I said, they're going to be kind of the catalyst, between telling these stories, and ultimately, Ben Kenobi is going to make his way into the Oasis to buy his supplies and get his life set up here, as he's starting his journey as a nomad in the desert, watching over Luke Skywalker. I did think it was kind of funny. Now we're getting into some of these other characters. I thought it was kind of an interesting decision that the woman here, the storekeeper, is named Annaline, and her nickname is Annie, which is also Anakin's nickname.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was
sounds, even though I guess it's more sad Tatooine sounds.
Sad Tatooine sounds. I was like, oh man, her nickname is the same as your Padawan that just turned. That's a bummer.
And this is our dog Panda, but we call her Padme.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, would you like a saltine cracker there, Kenobi? You're looking
we
a
call
little.
Them satines.
Yeah.
And then, do you need a new phone? These have the HoloNet and Siri on them.
Oh God, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
triggering Kenobi in all the ways
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I like kind of at the outset, so we get a Yark story, we get kind of the intro to this Oasis. We learn a little bit about, Ben Kenobi and where he's settling in, and he's saying that it's like 100 kilometers to the Lars residence,
Yeah.
which is kind of a distance, but Owen has made it very clear that he's not to be really that close to them. So you get that, and then you get kind of the big updates with Kenobi and kind of these meditation sections that you get, kind of at the end of every couple of chapters, and where he's going and talking to Qui-Gon, and that's really when you get to process kind of the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that Ben Kenobi has, because really, in the bulk of this book, maybe like the first 2/3 of the book, it's really heavily focused on the people of the Oasis and Ayark and her people.
Yeah, and the red flags of Oren Galt. They come hot and heavy immediately. I think during his introduction, or whenever he comes back to the claim, he mentions the Tusken people as savages, and he brags about getting a new gaffy stick or Gadurfi or whatever the savages called them from a young warrior, and that we find out more about that later on through Ayark's perspective, that these are young warriors, that they're untested, and they're all that she has left, which makes events later pretty tragic. But we get to know the people of the claim, and I'm such a huge fan. Ulbrich is, I could have another kind of a more gray fan club for Ulbrich. He is an old man set in his ways. He's a bit droidist, but isn't everybody on Tatooine and throughout the galaxy after the Clone Wars? Like, realistically, I do love that as an explanation for, later on. I think it's the innkeeper on Tatooine at the cantina. Oh man, I'm forgetting all these things. But his father was killed by droids, so he doesn't trust droids at all. But it's understandable. But he is, a curmudgeonly old man, and he is truly just who he is full on throughout the whole book. Every challenge, everything that pops up, he is just approaching it as a curmudgeonly old man and just very gruff and upset about things. And he's got some solid burns in this. I didn't get around to making the notes. I wanted to have Obi-Wan Ulbrich burn counter for the amount of times that they burn or troll people in the book. And if you're a prequel memer, there is a lot of potential here for prequel memes through your favorite, old Ben Kenobi. But it's a solid time, and they're very, very well written characters and well rounded characters. Throughout the book, I feel like I know these people. Like I could, the casual political phrasing, could have a beer with them. I wouldn't have a beer. I don't drink, but I could have a coffee and listen to some odd jazz and a great jazz by a little Blue Elephant Man in a cantina somewhere. They're really, really well done, and that is all John Jackson Miller. He has crafted these people so well, and you really care about them by the end of the book. It's crazy.
I joke that the Book of Boba Fett, which is not a book but a TV show, should have been called Tales of Tatooine or something. But they really could have called this book Kenobi, which will be a Disney Plus series, but it's also a book. They could have called Kenobi Tatooine, or maybe Tales of Tatooine, and I think it would have fit as well. So it's really fleshing out Obi-Wan and his new surroundings, and because this is somewhere he's going to spend about 20 years, so it's going to have an impact on him. And after being a Jedi, fighting a galaxy-spanning war, being a Jedi constantly on the move, it's different for him to be in one place with one priority, like you said.
Yeah, we could call it the Tales of Fuzzy Face or Hairy Face. Yeah. As a Yark's perspective puts it plainly. Yeah, I love that too. To throw that in as well, the perspective shifts. Whenever we make, I have more to say on this later, but whenever we make somebody the other, and whenever you're in those conflicts, the switching perspectives, Oren calls Ayark Plug Eye, and Ayark later on calls Oren Smiling, or the Smiling Face, Smile Face, the Smiling Man, yeah. And yeah, that's a really, really cool little note, and great to see those shifting perspectives. And yeah, hairy face. It's a good time.
Yeah, and because it goes into the the fact that they recognize each other from their interactions. And they're both kind of placing that that way that they would describe someone else from another culture, I guess, to people of their own culture. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. One of the things that I thought was also kind of well written and probably true and kind of humorous, but when Ben Kenobi starts going into and to do his shopping and things, like all of the ladies are like instantly like drawn to Mr. Kenobi. He's new to town. He is an off-worlder. He has not been under the twin suns for his whole life yet. So apparently
he's a quality man.
He's still looking
quality
more
stock.
He's still looking more Ewan, I guess, at this point. But I thought that was kind of. I thought that was kind of humorous and interesting and probably very true. I mean, when if you're living out out in the middle of the desert in this kind of rundown little patch of land, probably aren't seeing a lot of new faces come around. So
yeah. I was really surprised that Herbally Napti didn't come in and was like, "Do you work here?" Like something, because in a row, right? We get like 3 simps right off the bat. Like we get Lily Pace, and then we've got Vika. Vika, it says, analyzes him like he's a piece of like livestock. Like,
yeah.
This is a funny thing to talk to my girlfriend about too, because she's like, yeah, it makes sense. They're on a desert planet, like you guys are saying, yeah. But,
limited options, probably.
Yeah.
One of the other things that Ben has is he has his pet, which it looks like he has in the TV show, his Yopi, which he uses, as kind of a pack animal and uses it for transportation. And that's going to be important because that's going to bring him a little bit more together and a little bit closer to Annalene, and we're going to start to see kind of a blossoming relationship. And as a reader, how tragic that is, because obviously we know that Ben Kenobi, ends up alone as this hermit, that this relationship's not going to work out. But, all of their interactions together are so great throughout the book. And every time they're having one of these, kind of moments where they're talking and, she's trying to analyze him and figure out exactly who he is because he's being so secretive. You're like, oh man, you're really pulling for him. But at the same time, that it's destined to not go anywhere. But I think that is kind of a neat little through line for the book as well.
Yeah.
What I like about Obi-Wan is like he's kind of able to put his duty first, even though like he has genuinely like in the novel like kind of fallen in love with like Satine and Siri, or Anakin kind of like is obsessed, with Padme and like kind of makes it like his whole thing. Like Obi-Wan like loves people but can let them go, and it would have been cool to see like stepdad Kenobi like team up with Annalene, but like he kind of does the right thing, but like it's not like he's just like, I'll ghost you, on Tatooine, and like you just need to like work at like Tatooine Walmart, it's like you're gonna. Oh wait, does she go to Alderaan to study?
Yeah, she goes to Alderaan. It's a nice planet. It's very
Hopefully
beautiful.
She's not there 20 years later,
Yeah. There are a couple references, right? Like, Alderaan's still there, isn't it? Like, why are you doing this to us?
Why are you doing this to us? Well, I think luckily for her, I think she was going to study, and I think it was like 10 systems or 8 systems or something that it went to. So hopefully, we're imagining that Annalene is well away from Alderaan by the time that happens.
One of the Star Wars women who gets a happy ending other than Frog Lady, and then that's it.
Frog Lady.
List. So,
and let's hope that Rue gets a happy ending. I mean, she's got a pretty happy go of it here. I also like just to hop onto Rue, that we get like kind of these hints through the other characters, watching Ben on Rue, like there's a lot of notes about how much she's carrying, how she's so skinny, how she just looks very, like her legs are described as like just little sticks. Yeah, she's got like this full load. She also carries Callie later on whenever the dewback situation happens. She carries Callie, she carries Ben, she carries the full load. But is she doing that alone? Is Ben, in his compassionate way, he's got a beast, he's got a beast of burden, but he's a Jedi and he's Ben Kenobi. Is he using the Force to constantly give her a hand? Like, carry the load himself as they're going? Because what else is he really doing? Just riding around. I just love that as like a small note. Plus, she's pregnant through the book. Like, she's got so much going on. I wonder if he picks up on like, oh, she looks like she's struggling. Let me give her a hand and stuff like that. I don't know. I thought it was really cute. And just announcing the Rue fan club as well.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Hopefully maybe in the TV series when we see his EOP, maybe it'll be Rue, or maybe it'll be Rue Junior or something. We'll get a little nod. That would be pretty cool. So
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see on that one. I guess kind of the main turmoil in the story is more or less that Oren is basically selling like protection to the people of this area, and setting up the crate dragon calls, and gets himself into some financial trouble, and ends up having to do some pretty heinous things to try to make it look like there's still danger out there, when the danger really hasn't been. And we get into that more with Iark's story, because to hear Oren tell it, the Tuskens are still raiding, they're still attacking people, they're still out to steal everything and to kill everyone. But as we keep checking back in with Iark and are learning about her and her tribe, that's not the case, right? Oren is staging a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot going on. You start to get kind of this back and forth where you're hearing, this story from two sides, and Ben always kind of seems to be bearing the brunt of it. He's kind of in the middle of it, and that's one of the interesting things. Then I think is he's getting to actually speak with Iark and hear her story, and learn the truth about her tribe, and what their ambitions are, and what's kind of really going on in this area. And I probably want to talk a little bit more about those things that go on, but eventually you get you get to the point in the story where she's talking about how we've not really been raiding now for the last several cycles, because one of your kind came and took a bunch of us out. So we've been our numbers are way down, and we're not really going on raids like we used to. So all of these things, they're not us. We're not doing that stuff. So
yeah. And a lot of the warriors that she has left are so young, so untested. She calls them what are they? They're born under the cowardly sun because they're cowards. They show their faces to be cowards and they flee. And at one point, right, she's worried that her son. Well, I wouldn't even say worried. She's pretty set in her ways that if her son shows himself to be a coward in his becoming a Tusken, her son Hadin, that she'll kill him. He's her last son, similar to Oren, and similar to Annalene. I love those parallels as well, that these are all the same people in different circumstances. It's different cultures, different bases, but yeah, their numbers are so low, and what they're left with are children, boys, and the elderly. That becomes pretty, sad later on whenever we've got the assault there, and she's not, instructing her warriors, scalp their heads, take their stuff, slit their throats, all this wild stuff that Oren would lead you to believe if he had you alone in a room.
Yeah.
She's saying, protect the children, put them into the caves, help me, Ben, and he does. I have a note later on, isn't it like saving people's lives is my specialty or something like that? But yeah, it's very harrowing, and it's very poignant to look at that perspective shift and how that people weaponize the other and use them as a tool to control other people. Because, you know, Oren starts off as a farmer, but he gets himself in so deep that he becomes basically, you know, a watered down warlord by the end of the book. And all of his, you know, hints throughout the book hint towards that potential. And yeah, the way that he's driving and controlling the people around him and utilizing that hate. It's noted later on that the vibe and everything changes before the attack, that it goes from him giving a speech to him, you know, giving a war speech, and everybody changes, the vibe changes, and you could just feel the hate flowing through everybody. But yeah, it is very tragic. And the fact that, a Yark, her and her people are just trying to survive, and that's what their entire culture is based on. Sure, there's raids, sure, there's this other stuff, but again, circumstance. They are a struggling people. Their culture is around survival, and they are living day to day. And she sees the people of the Oasis, and, you know, talks about how they do their periodic, you know, praise to their slug overlords, their slug gods, and then calls them slugs in their own because they're sitting inside their homes away from the elements, and they are not of Tatooine. They are on Tatooine. They are conquering the landscape, which is to their people within KOTOR, and then within this book, an abomination. You should be living of the, you know, of Tatooine. So it's really interesting, and it's really sad that Oren does the thing. He continues a cycle of violence, and it's really messed up. And that is something that happens in real life.
Yeah.
Happened to Indigenous people whenever we were, you know, needed to be cleared. Happened to African Americans. Happened to the Jewish people. Happened to, you know, the Japanese people in World War II. Whenever people are made to be other, it is so incredibly easy for those people that are hurt to perpetuate a cycle of violence and commit inhumane acts against these people that are not humanized. And that's what's so important about a Yark being female later on, because Annalene was ready to, you know, put one bolt through her head whenever they brought Nadine to her, whenever they're fleeing the Hamptons Gorge massacre. She was ready to shoot her until she realizes she's a female, that she's a mother, that this is her child, and she sees a Yark as a person. She sees herself in a Yark. She doesn't see the false face that Oren's given them. And yeah, she doesn't see these hateful, bloodthirsty savages. She sees a mourning mother. And it's really messed up. Not a big fan. Not a big fan of Oren. He's a pretty bad guy. He put sand flies into a cup and watched them eat each other. He's got a couple red flags. And I think there's a very, very strong case that Tatooine might breed psychopaths.
Kind of like Mad Max.
Yeah. Like you've got Luke shooting rodents with like a high-powered ship gun, and you've got, you know, Oren doing all the things, and then you've got full-on Anakin doing the stuff that he does. He has a good reason, but the fact that he doesn't see them as a people, he probably doesn't hear the cry of the children because they're children. He sees them as other. He sees them as the enemy. He sees them as nothing. He sees them as animals. He slaughters them like animals. And that's what Oren is perpetuating. And also, I mean, it's how many generations of colonization happens on Tatooine, and he's really just redirecting, and he's just stirring that fire. And a Yark and her people are not the ones, man. They are just trying to survive. And
Yeah, Oren, bad, not good. Don't do what Oren does.
0 out of 10.
Yeah.
is pretty.
Would not recommend.
No, he is getting no stars on Yelp. His yeah.
Yeah, he's doing all of this bad stuff because he's basically embezzling from this kind of protection fund. So he gets in some hot water with the Hutts, who'd given him sort of a business loan with high interest, which is something you don't want to do with the Hutts, which makes him which makes his temperament and bad decision making all the more worse once he gets kind of between a rock and a hard place, and he tries to bring Annalene into it. And he has all these confrontations with Ben Kenobi kind of throughout as this story's progressing. But one of the things that I really liked kind of about the world building aspects here on Tatooine is it talks a lot about the animals that we've seen on Tatooine. So there's a lot of dewbacks, and I think Annalene's her daughter has like a pet dewback that she uses to ride around. Callie, that's kind of interesting. I like there's a section where Krayt Dragon is coming in through. It's one of the canyon crates, which is what we see in KOTOR, not the sandworm dune type of Krayt Dragon that we saw in the Mandalorian. And then you have the Sarlaccs, and it sounds like from the book there are a bunch of them, and they don't always know exactly where they're at because they have little baby Sarlacc pits. So there's a section where Iark and I think another couple of the people from her tribe are out doing their thing, and they hear that Krayt Dragon call kind of security system thing that Oren had set up, and the two younger ones kind of flee and run off, and she looks at them go, and she's like, we don't know what's that way. Right? We don't know what's out there, what dangers are out there. So you're doing the wrong thing. And I think that the kind of the world building around the creatures that we've spent so many years with on Tatooine are really kind of given extra life in the story too.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that immediately she clocks that it's fake, that she clocks that it doesn't sound right, that it sounds tinny and mechanical, and yet they're so afraid that she can't explain it to them. She does. She tries to explain to her warriors that it's fake, it's false. If you hear it, keep attacking. But it's so I guess that speaks more to how young they are, but also how terrifying it is to encounter a Krayt Dragon. As we see them in KOTOR, you can just walk into that cave and just you're done. Just bloop out. You died. The game just says you died. We're not going to show you. You're just gone. Oops. Cross that barrier. You're gone.
Dead.
He casually walked forward and you died. But I guess that speaks to how terrifying those things are to encounter. And I do also love all the animal stuff, that they get so much more personality. You get the moment with Ben trying to herd his bantha, and he just keeps banging his head into his house because he thinks that it's his mom. And I don't know, that's also Disney merch. We see it in the holiday special. We see it in the book. Please stop doing this. You can make money. Make the little baby banthas. I want a little baby bantha. Maybe there is, but I didn't see.
That's what Boba Fett says is make baby banthas.
Are we going to get a shout out in Kenobi where he goes, "Go Roo, make baby roos, make little roos,
make baby roos"? Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I would definitely be down for that. And then one of the other kind of striking parts that I thought was really interesting. I can't remember exactly what the context of it was, where it was being told. I think it was Iark just having kind of like an inner like monologue, where she's just kind of thinking about where her people are right now and how they got there and kind of how bad things have gotten. But she's kind of like ruminating on like the wrappings that they wear and how they got. And I thought that was just really striking and incredible. So Huni, I imagine you have something to talk about that, but I thought that was just really incredible. Just section there to describe the Tusken Raiders as a people, a nation of people. Yeah, I am scouring my notes for that section now, but she talks about it as the defeats and your successes, right? You carry with you, like all of them, even if they make
an impression that's negative. So it only takes a pebble to cause a sore. And the fact that we find out that Tusken Raiders have wraps from the moment they're born. Their faces are covered, their entire bodies are covered because they're covered in sores. And, Tatooine itself is so abrasive to live on. And I thought it was very, very good that we got that perspective to understand why they never show their faces and why it's such a huge insult later on whenever Oren and the gang are, doing what they're doing. That it's like such a huge insult to their culture, to their people, and I'm sure to the original owners of those wraps that it's such a huge insult that they're faking it. Like, I'm sure she's upset for a lot of reasons, but that's definitely one of the more triggering ones because that's a cultural touchstone for them, and that's integral for their day-to-day to protect against the sands, but also to protect their faces to not anger the older brother, right? Is the larger of the two. But yeah, and again, she has so few people. There's one note here. I couldn't find where that was, but I have one note here. The Shaper had no more clay to spare after the attack from Anakin. So that is incredibly personal to me, because for our creation story, it's told that people are shaped from clay, from foam, from bark, and the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people, we are shaped and formed from red clay and variations of red clay. So whenever I heard that, I was like, oh, like my whole soul and everything, it just seized up. And the fact that she even calls their maker, their deity, their god, the Shaper, the creator, it's, oh my God, it's so good. So good. And I'm curious what research John Jackson Miller did into indigenous nations, and I'm curious what his cultural root was for fleshing out the Tuskens in such a way. It's so good. Yeah. I feel like we could get a so good counter going, or dope counter going from me, or I'm gonna need like some real structure here with all the fan clubs that I'm making. Yeah.
We could just start a fan club,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just am so grateful that, like, KOTOR and Kenobi kind of helped really flesh out the Tuskens and kind of give them justice. And it's so sad that the Book of Boba Fett only had 2 episodes, the first 2, and those are the only ones that exist, and so I'm kind of kidding there, but yeah.
Yeah, because we stopped watching after chapter 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me and all my friends, we hate the rest of the Book of Boba Fett. No, I'm just kidding. I won't perpetuate that. But yeah, that was I was crestfallen when that dropped. I think I even like texted you guys that I was so irritated. Like, that was they did it. They went for it. They built the characters up, and they really made them just the fuel for the tragedy. And I think it's really important that we move past indigenous peoples as being that tragedy, because we're still here, man. We're still kicking around. We're still nerds. We're still telling these stories, seeing these stories. And again, Tamora Morrison, from the little bits and rumors that I saw, was upset with that decision, but it wasn't taken into consideration, because it served the story, served the character, sure, but it didn't have to be
like that.
It didn't have to be like that, and it could have been survivors. Like, again, I think I even pitched it on the last podcast that it would have been great to see, warrior Tusken woman over the horizon with the little kid.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there was a better way, and they took the easy route of, we have indigenous coded characters. Wouldn't it be tragic if we built them up and they died? Oopsie poopsie.
Yeah.
We can go. The reason that we had such a strong chapter 2, and it felt so indigenous and it felt so representative, and I was happy. I was so happy to watch it with my little brother, all built up just to make that tragedy more juicy, and that's really it's just really disappointing. And that on top of the Indianette controversy recently, Disney, pull it together. I think you should give Taika Waititi a little more helm at the wheel. Give more indigenous storytellers a chance to tell these things right, and not go for the tragedy bait. So yeah, that was pretty disappointing. I have in my notes here that I loved the way that the Tuskens were represented in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett up to a point. Because, it really just...
It crushed me, and I was just thinking, like, oh no, Hoonie, I think I was watching episode 3 with my orange Every Child Matters shirts on.
Yeah.
And was not...
Yeah. But not to Jon Favreau. Let's kill that tiny Tusken child and make the audience sad. Understand why, I feel like Boba had enough fuel to go off and do the things, but not the writers. He needed to have a little bit more tragedy. But yeah, I would love to have a conversation with Tamar Morrison as distant clone number 37, to talk to him about how he felt about that, truly. And then I'd throw my bucket on and go run off and pretend to be, a little bit of a bigger clone, but, I could do it. But, yeah. There's a lot of really triggering language that's used specifically by Oren. I understand what Jackson Miller was going for. Because there is a lot of settler, manifest destiny, throwing all these words out that people will understand from American history class, but all the other stuff that they left out in that curriculum, in those textbooks, because it's egg on the face of the United States, and that's got to be avoided. If you're listening from Canada, you'll understand what we talk about a little bit later, but I have a lot of notes here talking about Crazy Old Ben as a Tusken lover. That felt very, very racist. Very, I think it's, what is it? There's a phrase that comes from those older settler stories in history talking about people falling for the fruit of the forest. Stuff like that. It's really terrible. And it continues to, fuel the juiciness of Oren's tragedy for me personally, and my girlfriend as well. She kept checking in periodically to talk about how trash Oren was. And there's a lot of use of the word savage on its own. Also, the fact that he calls the massacre at Hampton's Gorge a great battle. That is very poignant for that settler ideal. It's Wounded Knee, right? It's a great battle, but it's a great battle because you won, right? It's a great battle because you came out on top. It's a great battle because you didn't lose many men, and you shot women and children and elders and the weak and the sick, but there's no warriors to defend them, so it's a great battle. And again, just that perpetual cycle of violence, and the confidence that Oren has, and I'm sure men like his ilk in history have had to say these things. Sorry, got very dark.
It's appropriate, I think. And necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes to speak to we've touched on it a couple of times, but just who Oren is as a character and as a person, because he's basically profiteering off of the fear that he's helping to incite, of this group of indigenous people, that really don't have any reason to be feared, by this town. So, it's yeah, it's really tragic, and yeah, it's very reflective of things, and that story kind of carries over to what we hear, even at the A New Hope from Owen Lars as Luke is going off to try to find Ben Kenobi and things like that. So yeah, so definitely that through line goes, and then obviously all the way up still to through the Book of Boba Fett too. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kenobi Meditations. They kind of tail end every couple of chapters, which is basically him, just kind of meditating and talking to monologuing, talking to Qui-Gon through the Force. As Qui-Gon's able to reach back out to the Force, and he's kind of learning the skill. He talks about it a couple of times. That that's something that he's practicing to do. Him and Yoda kind of practiced, or he told him how to do it and said, go take Luke and go figure out how to talk to Qui-Gon, because he'll keep you straight. But what were your thoughts about the the meditation parts? Cassia, I'll give you a chance to jump in there on these if you want.
Yeah, they were great. I found it funny that he talks to himself and had to switch it to being an inner monologue after someone kind of listens to him and says it's not the Kenobi way, and it's his name's Kenobi, and I don't know, I just love monologues. I think they're great. There are no therapists in Star Wars, apparently. It would be great if he could talk to a therapist, but I guess Qui-Gon is good too, and it looks like that's definitely carrying over to the Kenobi streaming show. I'm definitely thinking Qui-Gon's ghost will kind of appear maybe as a voice, and then in the finale kind of be the spiritual, you might not have killed Vader again, but you have transcended the Force, and you can now be a Force ghost and be a blue person that tells Luke half truths, and stuff like that.
You will sit on a log.
Yeah, she's your sister. I could have told you before things got really awkward, but I didn't because reasons. So,
but the Force works in mysterious ways.
That's right. And I liked how they kind of used these meditations to address the fact that Ben Kenobi is not that good of a fake name if your real name is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's because, like you said, Cassia, he didn't have any intentions of ever telling anyone his last name, but it was overheard in these meditations. So then, everyone in this, closely knit town, knew about it by the time he got back there, the next time to start shopping. So
I love the note too that Kenobi is a very common name. Whenever he gets back, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know a Kenobi over here. You know him? No relation," and stuff like that. My last name's David, so there's plenty of Davids. I went to school with a lot of different Davids, and I'm like, "Yep." And my name is hard to say. Ali Huni is hard to say, I guess, or Huni is hard to say. So I've grown up pretty used to people calling me David instead of anything, and just that's life. But I do find that as a fun note. Right? Yeah, he can because Kenobi is so common.
I wonder how many Skywalkers there are.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think that's what they're called in the Thrawn books. The navigators on their ship, I think, are called Skywalkers, right? So, it could be a fairly common name. It's hard to say. But then kind of one of the other kind of key parts of this story that I thought was really interesting, and it's because you get Ben starting to open up to Annalene a little bit, and feeling maybe a little bit optimistic about where he is, but they take a trip into Mos Eisley. She's going to get a speeder, and he kind of gets roped into going on this trip. He doesn't really want to go on. He doesn't want to go into the city. He's still afraid he's going to be recognized, but he kind of lets his guard down a little bit. And they're sitting in a cafe, and he looks across the way, and there's an Imperial officer and a stormtrooper there, and that's that's kind of a really good callback, because you almost kind of going through the story as we're learning more about Ayark and the people of this settlement. You almost kind of forget about Ben's kind of trauma, and he looks in and sees one, and he's like, oh, it looks like a clone trooper, but just a little different. And I thought that section of the book was really great. I mean, there's some levity in there as well. Getting dragged into like an Ithorian wedding party, and he has to use the Force to basically cause this speeder to zoom off so he doesn't get his identity grabbed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought just him kind of seeing the after effects of the last time he was off Tatooine, at this point, maybe just a couple weeks or a couple months at this point, how the galaxy has already started to change for the worse.
Yeah. And as Ben wisely says, when Ithorians dance, it's best to get off the floor. I kind of want to see, an Ithorian dance off now,
That's right.
Kicking it old school, or I don't know, that super ages me. Or any of these other, what is it, the Step Up movies. That's a trend they could follow for Star Wars.
I was kind of thinking more traditional,
Oh,
maybe
true.
like
Okay.
Slavic, but maybe they're like doing the worm, but they're a hammerhead shark.
They're doing some hammerhead, head spins and stuff. And that'd be great.
That's right. They get the boombox and like a piece of cardboard, and they do some break dancing.
It's Sandy. It's Sandy on Tatooine.
Together. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean it's Sandy on Tatooine, right? You don't want to get sand in your clothes. You gotta put something down. Yeah,
That's right. Absolutely. But yeah, I kind of like that section, and like I'd mentioned earlier, it kind of goes into this kind of relationship building aspect with Annalene and Ben Kenobi, and you kind of alongside of Ben kind of let your guard down a little bit as you're reading it, and you're like, he's making, even if it's not a romantic thing, he's able to still meet people. And I think that there's a passage he even goes on to say, I think in his in one of the meditations, is that everyone that he's ever known is dead, basically.
Yeah.
Or all of everyone he's ever considered to be a friend or to be close to him as dead. So obviously we know that he's in this place of solitude on Tatooine in the desert, watching over Luke. But he literally, in the entire expanse of the galaxy, there's literally no one that he could turn to other than Yoda, and he doesn't even know where he is. He's in hiding too. So.
Yeah.
His strange little green uncle.
Yep.
I have a couple notes on that spot that I highlighted as well. One of the quotes is, "A life that seems small on the outside can be limitless on the inside." That could be a really great thesis for Doctor Who or the Kenobi show.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great summary for the Kenobi show. It could be a great summary for Luke as a character in the first place. Like, such a small life, but expands into this whole huge thing. I also like that Annalene points out the suits must be awful in the heat. If we have any cosplayers here, I haven't cosplayed. I'd love to, but yeah, my heart goes out for these people, especially the dude that tripped down the stairs. That video that went around. That was pretty awful to watch.
Maybe the Wilro Hood kind of. They should actually have ice cream in their ice cream makers, and they could give it to all the people, in those seats. Those are the cool down troopers, actually. They switches it on and it shoots cool air under the helmet. Yeah, that's Wilro Hood is a real hero, a real cosplay hero if you want to implement that. Also, a funny note, a super meta note. For people that know my content and know my Instagram stuff and know my OC story, I did design Clay to be comfortable when cosplaying if I ever decided to cosplay him. That's why he doesn't have any thigh armor, because I feel like that would be more comfortable to cosplay in. Anyway,
that's very forward thinking.
Yeah, 12 steps ahead, But
Galaxy's Edge should sell Wilbur Hood ice cream
Yeah.
at Galaxy's
Yeah.
Edge.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Like that.
Just have good ideas, like how do I market very obscure things and build
100%.
an empire around it,
Yeah, inspired a merchandise.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Inspired a merch store. Yes, I
Yeah.
love it.
When we had Hooney on to talk about Max Rebo, I think we came up with like a Max Rebo like shower head. So
Oh, yeah.
we could, we
Crying
could
Max Rebo.
we could go anywhere
Crying
with our
musical
with our-
tears or something.
with our
Yeah.
with our good business ideas.
The only shower head that has the blues. Yeah. But yeah, my note on the Empire, it's so interesting that they're literally just farmers in the furthest portion of the galaxy, and their galactic politic knowledge is nothing. Like, they know that used to be a Republic aid station, and there used to be, white-clad armored troopers walking around. There's still white-clad armored troopers walking around. They know that there was some kind of situation with the Republic, that there was a regime change, but not much other than that. And it seems like the Imperials have quietly made the transition. We see that a little bit more in the Bad Batch series, but I'm curious how heavy we're going to be getting. I'm sure we're going to get it super heavy with the Inquisitors, but
Yeah.
just from a Tatooine perspective, yeah. And he clearly hides himself away.
They even kind of touch on that a little bit in episode 1, right? When they're going to get the ship parts, and Watto says that they don't take Republic credits, because they're, like you said, they're this desert planet out in the middle of nowhere. Like, they don't care about the galaxy's politics. It doesn't affect them at all. And I think that's and that's something that George Lucas really kind of tuned in on, is that you can allow these terrible things to rise up because people just don't know and don't care and don't think that it's ever going to be at their doorstep until it is.
Yeah, Watto and Luke and Annalene, to a certain extent, especially Orin, they're all apathetic to the happenings of the universe, and after all, apathy is death.
And it would have been interesting to see if Luke and Leia's positions were reversed, if Leia would be we need to care about the people all the way in the core under the Empire, and maybe Luke would still find things to complain about, on Alderaan, and be it's too green in the center of the galaxy.
Things
and,
are too perfect
my
here.
cape isn't cool enough,
Lando swung by and he had a cooler cape than I did.
Yeah,
me and my girlfriend talk about that all the time, about how in the Certain Point of View book for Empire Strikes Back, that Yoda wanted Leia to be, their last hope, wanted to be their Jedi, the one that they trained, and he was all the way down to do it, and then Kenobi was like, oh, no, it's going to be Luke. But maybe he was just no, I'm going to save the galaxy because my face is literally melting on this planet. It is so hot, and all this sand is scorching my skin, and I don't know. That's not even a good Obi-Wan impression, but you know what I mean. Maybe I was just irritated.
Did I just hear Alec Guinness's ghost?
He's entered the room. He's entered the Zoom call.
Yeah.
I'd like to sit on a log.
Well, yeah, Luke was almost out of the house. He was almost out of old Ben Kenobi's hair for good.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to be able to leave and go into retirement, but no, got roped in right at the last, and the last he'd put in his 2 weeks notice, and he got roped into this one last adventure.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about the book. Were there other notes or things about the story itself that you wanted to make sure that we hit on before we start putting a pin in the novel, I guess?
I want to talk about representation a little bit, and how that's really important moving forward with storytelling in general, and as such a huge fan of the series and of the Star Wars community overall, but moving forward, in our last podcast, and I noticed as well that there's not a lot of reviews of this book, so there's the potential that we'll have a lot of people listening in, because this is the first time that they're getting exposure to the fact that there is a Kenobi book and that the show is coming out. And so in case people haven't heard our last podcast, I talked a lot last time about like the seventh generation and how they're so important. I'm tiptoeing a little bit here, but it's so important for these stories to have the proper representation, because you have indigenous coded characters and they're written just to die, or they're written just to be savage, or they're written in such a way that you for a glimpse can see yourself represented within these characters. And with like a Yark and the characters in The Mandalorian, and to a certain level, the warrior woman that I have another fan club for, they're such strong representations and such good characters that children can stand behind, because Star Wars is for children. Don't stab me, don't find me, I've already been stabbed, I don't like it. It wasn't great. It is so important that whenever these kids see themselves represented in these stories, children of color, children from the LGBTQ community, that they see this representation. There's a lot of griping, and there's a lot of people that are fighting with claw and fist to keep Star Wars non-political, but it's always been political. Even like the little Ewoks were a representation, a parallel of the Vietnam conflict. And Lucas's love of the little guy triumphing over the mass-manufactured masses. And yeah, so representation matters, and there's a lot of danger whenever representation is based on stereotypes and based on fallacy, based on falsehoods. Whenever representation has a narrative. With the original roots, the original inspirations for Tatooine and the treatment of the savage Indian trope, that was from these movies from the 50s, these westerns, that were just perpetuating indigenous peoples as other, as the chaff to be cut from the land, as the weeds that surrounded the good, fresh, new land. And people like Oren existed in history. They were in a bad place, or they were, just sick enough, like Mullen and Vika, his children, who I feel like are psychopaths. They went on to perpetuate some pretty heinous acts. They called slaughters like the one at Hampton's Gorge, they called them great battles. They wrote them off, and they called themselves heroes, and yet they were just perpetuating incredible violence against fellow humans. And we like to think about it as a distant memory, especially within the American school system, within those textbooks that I mentioned. And yet it's recent history. It's not a glimpse memory. It's not ancient history. So to get into it, trigger warning for a lot of people, residential schools were created in a joint operation between the United States and Canada and the Catholic Church to kill the Indians, save the men. So they took children. They saw their parents as unfit to care for these children, and they forced them into residential schools. They were forced to assimilate, and if they didn't assimilate, unspeakable things happened. So throughout Canada, currently, there has been grave sites that have been uncovered on residential school grounds. And these grounds have the first uncovered 215 Indigenous children that lost their lives due to the traumas and things enacted on them at the residential schools. My grandmother is a survivor, and I carry that story and her story with me. Those are the stories I heard as a kid that scared me. I talked about my little brother, and I think about my children in the future. And I'm so fortunate that I was able to have a childhood. I was able to be nerdy. I was able to be a geek. I was able to run around and see Indigenous faces all around me. Children, teachers. I grew up with my culture. I grew up with my stories. but my grandmother wasn't so lucky when she was taken. The current number of uncovered Indigenous children as of 2022 is over 10,000. These are lost elders. These are lost storytellers. These are lost knowledge keepers. These children could have been, would have been our future and would have, been around to carry on the culture. And there is more to come. In our first podcast, I mentioned the fact that 215 is a large number, but it's going to be more because that was only a few sites, and there are hundreds across Canada and U.S. and the United States. If you're from Canada, you know this story. It's been in your curriculum, but if you're in the United States, I'm speaking to you. This is recent history. This is something that happened, and I'm lucky to have grown up the way that I grew up within my community. But those children were not, and it was the making these children and our culture and our people the other that was able to perpetuate these acts. Because whenever we see people as something other, then it's so much easier to just write off horrible things that happen. We're seeing that now across the world, and we've seen that through a history, and my people have survived being the other, being the savage. These children grew up with names, traditions, stories, song, their brothers, their sisters, their mothers. They didn't see them come back. And the only names that they heard were savage, useless, dirt, things like that. They were seen less than, because within the book, and an unsaved soul is not worth a whole lot under the church. I am fortunate and I'm happy that my grandmother came back and that she shared these stories with me whenever I was young, because it made me aware of things that I should actually be afraid of, and the depths that humanity's able to go, and how fortunate I was as a child. So we honor and celebrate those children on September 30th. Cassia mentioned her orange shirt, Every Child Matters shirt. Because there are still sites to be uncovered, there are still children to be found, and there are still families to be reunited with those children. I was just watching videos talking about the new technologies and stuff that people are using to uncover these sites, and a woman said that the technology, the devices that they're using are so heavy, but they say that it's nothing compared to what these families are carrying right now, and they carry that with them. But again, we are still here. Our stories are still being told. Our culture is being revitalized. Our cultures, I should say, because there are so many Indigenous peoples that have suffered from this tragedy. Even folks in Australia, it happened there as well. And again, it is not ancient history. It is recent history. A generation passed, there were children being forced into these schools. The last one closed in 1996, I believe, a year after I was born. And but we are still here. Our stories still matter. Our voices still matter. Our people are thriving. And, people can clutch stereotypes and mascots as much as they want, but that is not a representation of the people that I come from. The generations past and generations forward. We were here first, we were here before, and we'll be here long after. And that's why it's so important for Indigenous coded characters, for people of color coded characters, these peoples, to be seen succeeding beyond these tired tropes that we've seen in the Book of Boba Fett and some other content. Because it's important for these children to grow up and know that they can succeed, to know that there is a future, to know that, we are more than what we've overcome. And yeah. So again, thank you for giving me the space to talk about this. It's something I've grown up with and known, and so many people across indigeneity have grown up with and known, and dealt with in their own ways. The losses are incalculable because there is generational trauma from my grandparents, from my parents forward. It's diluted when we're lucky, but when we're not, there are losses. Again, sorry. We are still here. Nyongo, Cassie and Brian. Because it's great to have spaces like this to get nerdy, talk about little blue elephant men, but also talk about real subjects and real things that are happening. So I invite everybody that's listening now to, join us on September 30th. Wear an orange shirt to work, or to, along with your sweatpants if we're still dealing with, work from home. All these things. Support where you can residential school survivors. We have the notes down below and links. And there is a lot. There is more than a few places to donate, and if you live close to a reservation or have friends, lend an ear, because again, if we have uneducated masses, then we just perpetuate that cycle, and that's implicity with these actions. So we have links to the orange shirt, shirtday.org. I'm looking at it now. Residential school donations, as well as the MMIW movement. And that is also a very heavy and recent current happening that is involving missing and murdered Indigenous women. Again, go for listening to this if you've gotten this far and haven't shut it off, because we've gotten too real. And again, Cassie and Brian. Yep. Oh, also come to the Akwesasne powwow in 2023 if it happens. Oh, and another note, I am making a book. It's a children's book. It's based on our history. It's based on our legends. And it's a fun time, so it should be out in 2023. You still got a ways to wait if you're listening to this now. Anyway, always forward, and we are still here. And again, I think I'm on my third thank you, but again, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Huni, for sharing that with all of us, because it's very important for, people who aren't familiar with it to hear those things and to find out where they can learn more about it. And it's important, for people, who do know about it to be reminded that, it's important to, to keep checking in on this, because, this is, it's important for, for everyone to educate yourself on, and, to know the history, and to just be a part of the, a part of the solution, and, trying to, like you said, move forward and make things better. It's, that's on everyone's shoulders. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing that. I know it's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people, and I know that sometimes it's hard to talk about those things. So definitely thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And thank you for sharing about your book. You'd mentioned that right before we started recording, I'd forgotten. So I'm glad that you remember to throw that out there. So keep an eye on the social medias and stuff, and we'll keep up to date on that, and where you'll be able to pick that up. And things.
It'll be good for anybody that has kids. It's going to be a young reader book about a turtle and a bear racing, and the highs and lows of a bear being overconfident and saying to a turtle's face that he is slow.
Oh.
I won't spoil anything, but why would you ever call a turtle slow?
Yeah.
Is it because he moves slowly? I don't know. But turtle was here before the bear. He was one of the first creatures created within our history, and maybe he's a little slow. Maybe he's a little old. Maybe his joints don't work like they used to, but his mind is sharp.
Yeah.
Anyway, it'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be the first of many because I have a series planned. So, yeah.
Incredible.
It'll be fun.
And I'll just echo, like, every child matters, and it's good just to be aware and not dismiss things if they're uncomfortable. We can all learn, and we can learn how to do better. And thank you for coming on. These are hard things to talk about, but they're necessary, and stories are important. They can connect us together, and I think the key is the on-screen representation can't just be a stereotype. It has to be authentic, nuanced, real, and getting representation behind the screen is important too.
Yeah, definitely. You're never going to be able to tell the right kind of stories, and you're not going to be able to tell stories that are inclusive if that inclusivity isn't fulfilled behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. So so definitely hope to see that. Before we wrap this up, then given what we saw given what we read in the Kenobi novel, are there any hopes or wishes or things we would like to see portrayed in the Kenobi series as it hits our TVs next week?
Ooh, yeah, I've got a whole section on this. Yeah, anytime I come on the show, I've got too many notes, and I end up just picking bits and pieces. I know that they're just pieces of my brain, but
It means
anyway.
you're prepared,
Yeah.
That's right.
And I've devoted, at least one night from 9 to 3 a.m. Just writing and listening to ridiculous stuff. So,
that's why you needed 2.5 coffees before we started.
Yeah. I've barely, I guess that was enough. I've barely gone back for another sip. But yeah, I definitely hope that a Yark shows up. That would be amazing if she appears. If we see a silhouetted figure with a gem in one of her eye sockets, I will leap out of my chair and run in circles, similar to what I did whenever I saw Max Rebo just jamming out. I think, that is not a lie either. I think it was like 3 a.m. My girlfriend was sleeping, and I hopped out of my chair and had to hide behind it because I was so hyped, and I had to pause it because I didn't hear anything else that happened after, and I just rewound it. And I have pretty horrible Wi-Fi, so every time I rewound it, it was like I had to buffer so much. Anyway, yeah. If I'm to throw something out there, I think my guess for my prophecy, my cameo prophecy now. Listen in, listener. Elon Sleaze Bagano. I hope he shows up in the show, and we see that he's made a whole life for himself on his own. Kenobi told him to go home and rethink his life, and I hope that he did, and made him, had a whole life of his own. Maybe on Tatooine, maybe on the planet that we see him travel to. It looks like a city planet, but yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I would love the planet Stew John to get a mention or appear, but maybe that's just asking
Stygian?
for way too much.
Is it Stew John?
That's where Obi-Wan was born, is on the planet Stew John.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's good trivia.
George Lucas revealed it on the Jon Stewart show, so
Gotcha.
that's why it might sound familiar. But I think like Kenobi has been like kind of like a project that's like been in the works, since Disney bought Star Wars, maybe even before then. But
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm kind of more of, like, I do like my action, but I was kind of thinking, like, we were getting, like, a contemplative, like, character study show taking place on Tatooine, quiet, intimate moments, but I am so glad that Hayden Christensen's Anakin Darth Vader is going to appear. Like, for me, it's about the brotherhood, you know, the twisted brotherhood, you know, of Vader and Obi-Wan, almost like the two brothers, the sons, you know, mythic, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think the whole show will be on Tatooine, but I want my Tatooine peeps to get some love, you know, and I would love for the Tuskens to be treated like the kings and queens that they are, you know?
Truly.
And given respect.
Ooh. I would love to see Tusken warrior woman young. Oh my god. That'd be great. Yeah, I would love the through line to be, let's treat the Tuskens right. Like, we get it in Mandalorian, we get it in the first couple episodes of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But I would love to see, again, Obi-Wan, maybe he's, you know, stranded or marooned or something, and he's got Rue. If they name his Eopie anything but Rue, we riot.
Yeah. Maybe it's Kanga, you know?
Kanga. That goes over my head.
Oh, it's Winnie the Pooh. Kanga.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, Rue as a name. My girlfriend was like, yeah, but Hunger Games, is Rue going to die? And I'm like, no. Rue's going to live. She's going to double her life, actually.
That's right.
Man.
That's right.
But, yeah.
Well, we could totally have Ayark because from the looks of it, like we kind of said at the top, Kenobi looks like it's probably set kind of like halfway between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope ish, something like that. Because the little Luke Skywalker kid looks like he's probably like 7 or 8 years old, maybe.
Yep.
That they're showing there.
Like Anakin with those little
goggles. And he looks like Anakin, but
and he's riding like a bantha.
But so that would mean that if they had Ayark, then in theory Ayark would only be what, like another like 12, 15 years. Maybe Ayark was the one who sent Boba on his quest to build his gaffy stick. Maybe that was Ayark.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What if she was one of the elders?
I would love that.
Yeah,
that's very possible. And so maybe that. I think that actually would be really interesting, and it's not even something that crossed my mind until I read this book, which is why I think it's important to read, because I think it just takes you kind of on this mental journey about where Kenobi was, and we'll see, you know, what kind of comes to fruition. But we talked a little bit about how, you know, Kenobi, you know, says that everyone that he's ever like known and loved was dead, and he's not really able to have friendships, you know, within like the, you know, the people on Tatooine, but he could definitely have you know, friendship or camaraderie or something with the Tusken people, you know, because you know, all the people and Mos Eisley aren't going out to talk to the Tusken people, so they could definitely be you know, have some friendship or camaraderie, and now that's kind of what I want to see. Maybe you know, he journeys with them back and forth if he really is indeed living, you know, 100 kilometers away from the Lars homestead, you know, if that's how he's getting back and forth, and he's just able to kind of go on a journey across the desert to, you know, just to have someone else to talk to for a time. I think that would be incredible. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
we could also see Kenobi hitching a ride with the Jawas. I would love that. That was a great portion in the book as well.
Jawa content.
Yes, we love to see it. Yeah, and the fact that, you know, Orin's children are still trash, and they were throwing a Jawa around.
Oh.
Little oof.
Yeah,
that was terrible.
Yeah,
but yeah, we do love to see it. Love to see the Jawas helping out.
It'll be interesting to see like what Tatooine is like, kind of like under Imperial control during the dark times, and like how much of Obi-Wan is like off-world and why. Like, I would think it's probably to protect Luke and Leia, you know, not like just like I'm bored on a whim, you know, because Ben isn't really impetuous like Anakin was. Like there's a reason, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna go on with the greatest showdown of the century, but I just hope like character development is at the heart of this tale, and that's all we can hope for. And no matter what happens, I'm probably going to be like 5 out of 5 stars. Like, it's just amazing to see Ewan and Aiden on the screen again, you know. So that's probably what's going to happen. So.
All right. Well, thank you again, Hooney, so much for coming on and joining us and sharing with us and sharing with all of the listeners out there. We definitely appreciate it. We always love having you on. If you want to go back and, hear some more of Hooney's and our thoughts about the Indigenous people and the Tusken Raiders, you can go back to episodes 76 and 77. That's where we were covering kind of the Tatooine sections on Knights of the Old Republic. So Hooney, gets an opportunity to talk about kind of their stories and representations and how the Tusken people were depicted in The Mandalorian. So definitely go give those a listen to, and make sure you check out the links that are down in the show description, because it's really important to inform yourself and be aware of these things that are happening in the world. So thank you, Hooney, so much for coming on. Why don't you tell everyone listening out there who might not be familiar with you where they can find you online and what you have going on there, and things they can check out. They should check out your art shop, because I just got some prints and they're amazing.
Yes,
so
sir.
let everyone know where they can go check out all that stuff.
Alrighty, Segos Oguego, Hooney here. If you're not familiar with my work, if you're popping in because you saw a review for the Kenobi book and you were thinking about checking it out, definitely do that. If you're new to my work, there's a very good chance that you are looking at either a drawing of a Yark or, some other Tusken stuff that I might have drawn. You guys are, feel free to use the other ones that I've drawn as well, because I think that still plays into the stuff we're talking about here. They're centuries old, but anyway, you can find more art at HooneyD on Instagram. My website is hooneydavid.com. That was available. That's crazy, because Hooney is a German name, I guess. I only learned that last year. You can find my imprint shop. I think it's just HooneyD as well. And thank you, Brian. I saw that order go out, and I was really surprised. And I think you might have been able to catch one of the discount periods that I had there for a bit, right? There was a sale going on, so definitely a good deal. Yes,
if
sir.
you are looking to pick up a bunch of art, if you see one of those deals come through, and that's I would assume, I'm not an artist myself, but it seems like the imprint shop is a good way to help support your favorite kind of internet artists that you follow on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's a solid. I'm just seeing it as like a honeypot right now. I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm saving up for another new, nicer Wacom device. So any purchase that's made on my imprint is going to be, funneling back into my work.
Oh, nice.
That, or unless something tragic happens and I need to, get a bunch of money together and buy like a gold-plated like Max Rebo statue or something, like something super important.
It would be. Max Rebo is always important.
Yeah.
So.
Or if he's got a show happening, I'm gonna have to buy, so many tickets, so and so much travel for every city.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so those are the spots you can find me, and you can find my print shop there. And again, thank you for letting us get into some realer topics and talk about stuff happening in the wilder world of indigeneity. And please follow those links below. And I hope that you join us September 30th, and that you make your voice heard in support as well, because knowledge is paramount. I draw nerdy things on my Instagram, and I hope you have a good time looking at those, and you educate yourself as well through the links and stuff that we've shared here. So again, thank you for having me, Cassie and Brian. It's always such a great time. And I said it in the Discord that I'm off of Max Rebo, but I think I'm back on. I wonder if we'll see a young Max Rebo in this show as well. I've got to get a bingo card or something together, right, for all the cameo prophecies I've got. Because I guess Dengar for the Book of Boba Fett, and I was wrong. So, I'm not perfect here with my guesses. But, yeah.
Thank you for coming on, and may the Force be with you.